What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the homestead, and as you can tell, I'm sitting in the loft where we recreated that farmhouse ceiling just a few weeks back. So I'll throw a link up in the top corner for you if you missed that. And today's episode, we're going to be tackling a few more of the personal projects of this space, and the first being a desk for the homeowners. Oh, let's zoom you out here a little. Alright, so we're just breaking down the actual sheet plywood itself now for the top of the desk. And these cutoffs that we have here, these 4-inch remaining cutoffs, we're going to use to form the apron. Now we're going to do something a little bit different in this desk, that we're actually going to highlight the fact that we're using plywood and focus and show those laminated edges. I'll let the glue dry for a couple hours. At that point I could remove the clamps and scrape off any of the excess glue. From there, I could start sanding and getting these down to a nice, smooth, fine finish. With the first set of sanding completed, I can now start assembling my aprons, or the skirting of the desk, to the actual desktop itself. Once again, I'm going to use wood glue and clamps to hold everything together. Now you can also use something like brad nails from the top down, but this would leave little nicks in the top of the work surface. You could use something like pocket screws on the back side of the apron, but I was worried about how that would actually affect my laminated layers of plywood. Once the glue was dry, I could chisel off the excess humps. From there, everything got another sanding to get it nice and smooth. Once that was complete, I needed to trim the ends of my apron. Now to do this, I used a tool that I haven't really had for very long, but I'm learning to fall in love with, and that's a Japanese saw. In this case, it's specifically a Japanese plywood saw meant for cutting through hard layers of plywood without dulling the teeth. It's great for getting a nice, smooth finish cut. So we're starting to approach the end of this project, and it's time to join our two pieces of desk together. I'm just marking out marks on each side of my two pieces, and these will be guides for where I use my biscuit joiner. Now, I like using a biscuit joiner for something like this because it provides a little bit more sturdiness to the joint, and I found it works quite well when working with plywood. I should also mention that at this point of the project, things don't go quite according to plan, and we wind up going in a totally different direction than I had originally planned. Alright, so we've had a massive up with the biscuit joiner, and my depth gauge and my height gauge shifted while using them, and they've come out the top of my desk. I feel like it's time to take this project in a little bit more of a creative turn. So we're dealing with a kind of industrial vibe loft up there. So what we're actually going to try and do is, instead of doing bow tie joints in that area that is completely garbled, I'm going to try and inlay some rebar into it and then pour an epoxy over top of that and give it kind of that industrial vibe, which ties into these nice raw plywood edges pretty well. Something I've never done before. This will either completely ruin the desk or it'll look pretty good. Let's find out. Okay, so that turned out a lot better than I was expecting. I'm getting absolutely eaten alive by mosquitoes now, and we're pretty much, next step is nightfall here, so we're going to leave this project for today and pick it back up tomorrow.
One day later.
So I'll be totally honest, this project is not working out exactly how I'd hoped. The epoxy pour, well, that was to make up for brutally screwing up with the biscuit joiner, but I think that actually turned out okay, as long as we can get them sanded and they look nice and clean. But in doing that, I've kind of started going through some of the top veneer layer, this birch layer on top, because it is really, really thin. So now in order to make it kind of look purposeful, I'm kind of removing it purposefully in other areas. Fingers crossed it turns out okay. Okay, with the sanding finished off, that brings the actual tabletop itself, or the desktop itself, to completion. This is done. And the last step of this project is going to be to make some legs. So it's sitting on that ledge we installed earlier on the wall, but we need 3 legs, so one at that side, one in the corner, and one at the far end, to hold the front side up. And what we're going to be using for that is some old copper pipe out of our last reno project. So I have a bunch of this 1.5-inch copper pipe that I kept, thinking it would make for something good down the line. And it's gonna be the legs for our desk. Well, there it is. That is how I built a giant L-shaped desk out of plywood, and really highlighted the fact we're using plywood with these laminated edges. Now, if you were to go out and buy all the copper tubing, it would probably be a lot more. 2-inch copper tubing is not cheap where I live. Am I happy with how the project turned out? Somewhere in the middle. It didn't turn out exactly how I pictured in the beginning, but that's sometimes how projects go. And this time was really no different. I learned a ton of different stuff, which was great. You know, I'd never done inlays into wood before. I'd never done laminated plywood before. I'd never poured epoxy before. So all of these were fantastic opportunities to learn a new skill. But again, I'm still because it wasn't exactly how I had pictured it. I'll overcome that. The homeowners are super happy with the result, and that's all that matters to me in the end. But it's another project in the books here at the homestead. Thanks a ton for watching. Smash that subscribe button or whatever we're doing in 2020. Hit that little bell icon so you get notifications every time we release a new video, and we'll see you in the next one.